Okay, we are live, Stefan. You can go on.
Thanks, Sagar. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Product People community event. We're really very happy and thankful that you decided to spend your late afternoon, early evening with us. The topic that we're going to be talking about today is collaboration between product management and marketing. And the person that's going to talk to us about this is Confidence Udegbue. I think I said that correctly. He's a product director at Freeletics. He's also very passionate about this topic. We had a little bit of a discussion before we joined this, before we went live today. So I'm really, really looking forward to hearing what he has to share for us on this. And then just before we jump into that, I just want to introduce you to myself as well. So my name is Stefan. I'm a senior product management consultant at Product People. You can see there on the side some of the stuff about me, but in general, I come from South Africa, from Cape Town, but I've moved to Berlin in the beginning of the year. And I've been with Product People for about a year and a half now. So yeah, it's nice to know that you're there, although I can't really see you. And then something about Product People. So how we make money as a business is we are interim product managers, interim product leaders, interim product ops. We have 42 in-house product managers. So we jump into a company when they need some interim help, let's say from 3, 6, 9 months, more than that. And we help them to deliver outcomes fast and get their teams aligned on getting the biggest benefit out for their products and building products with them. And then how we give back is what we're doing tonight, for example, is creating these free events, which you're part of. And if you're also part of this event tonight, you're part of our PM community, which is one of the largest ones in Europe. It's about 30,000 30,000 members in our community. So that's enough about Product People and enough about me. We're going to warm you up now for the discussion that we're going to have today. So there's 2 questions that we have for you. If you're on Zoom, you would have seen that there's a poll that just popped up and you can directly vote on that. If you're on YouTube or on LinkedIn, you can give us your answers in the chat there as well. And Sagar will read them and also send them through to me so that I can see what you've answered there. So the first question is, what aspect of collaboration between product management and product marketing do you find most challenging? And then you have 4 options that you can choose from: communication, alignment on strategy, teamwork, and goal setting. And then the second question is, which area would you like to hear more practical tips about during today's talk? And then you also have 4 options again: fostering open communication, building effective teamwork, aligning on the strategy, and goal setting for success. So I think for me as a product manager myself, sometimes I kind of fall into the trap sometimes with not pulling in product marketing as much as I should be doing. So I think like communication is something that I sometimes find a little bit challenging because everyone has a different type of mind and how they understand things. So that would be something that I would vote for there. And then an area that I think I would like to get some more practical tips on today was probably be like fostering that open communication. But let's see what you've said. So on Zoom, about 67% of you have said that aligning on a strategy between product marketing and product management is one of the things that you find most challenging. But then there's also very, very close second and third together is communication and goal setting. And then which area would you like to hear more practical tips about during the talk? On Zoom, there's a close tie between aligning on strategy and goal setting for success. So I think that's pretty cool. And I think it's a little bit different than stuff that I was struggling with. So it's cool to see that people are struggling with different things. But I think you're pretty tired of hearing my voice right now. I'm going to be handing over to Confidence to start talking about this collaboration between product management and marketing. So I'm going to stop sharing, Confidence, and then you can take the wheel.
Awesome. This is exciting because I think I addressed a majority of those points to a certain degree in my presentation. And then also I think I have some practical tips on fostering open communications. Obviously, this is something that I'm rather passionate about. So is my screen sharing going okay?
Yes.
Cool. So I'll just jump into it. I wanted to start by defining like who we are as product professionals, right? Product managers, product owners, depending on how it's like phrased at your organization. Some of the coolest definitions I've heard about defining a PM or like a product professional or product person is like a quarterback of the team. So this is kind of a term, obviously, from American football for anyone who's not familiar, but translated, I guess, to soccer is kind of like the team captain. The kind of difference here is a lot of times product professionals or product people might not have the actual hierarchical responsibility of being a leader, so to speak, but they're definitely like the cross-functional leader or like the quarterback of the team. This leads me to my next question, because people ask a lot of times, like, what does it really mean to be a leader or a CEO of like a feature or a product subset or a product area? There's a lot of things that make a great leader, right? Strategic thinking, I think, is one of those things. Being able to make decisions, so data-driven decision-making is another one of those qualities. Being able to communicate effectively, I think, is another one of those things. I think one thing that is maybe overlooked, which is obviously the base of my entire presentation, is being a strong collaborator. So as a leader, as a PM, especially as a product leader, especially in my situation, collaboration is as important gets. There's many groups that we need to collaborate with in our product sphere, mainly engineering. Depending on the setup of your organization, you might have a product marketing team, you might have a brand marketing team, but generally speaking, engineering is typically top of mind for a lot of product managers or product people. But product marketing collaboration, I think, is sometimes overlooked or deprioritized. And so we'll talk a lot about that now. So a little bit about me and why I feel passionate about this topic is, so I started my career as a hardware design engineer. I pivoted into sales engineering. I pivoted into product marketing, and then I pivoted into product management. I worked a little bit in strategy and like go to market. And then eventually I found my sweet spot in sort of product leadership. So leading other product leaders or leading product teams. In marketing speak, there's 4 main pillars that drive all of your decision makings. So I listed them here. I think many of us on the call are probably familiar with these. The 4 P's of marketing and product. So basically, how do you go about positioning a product? Placement is another one of those things. So what channels do you want to use, basically? Pricing, how you go about pricing a product or a service. And then promotion. So this is the one I think a lot of people are very familiar with. How do you actually promote a product or a feature or a service? Depending on your company setup, one of these P's will be top of mind for your marketing team. So this is where I really want to start with the practical tips. Number one thing as a product person, a product professional, is to find out which one of these P's is really driving the decision-making in your marketing team. You'll see why. I'll go to it in a little bit, but I'll use myself as an example now. At Freeletics, with my current team being, obviously, it's a consumer-facing product, promotion is definitely focus, or promotion is top of mind for my marketing team. They're very brand heavy. This actually gives you a lot of insights into the priority of the marketing team, helps you understand what is driving a lot of your decision-making processes. And if you have this top of mind, you know how to communicate with them, you know how to interact with them, and you know when to involve them in sort of your roadmap or your strategic development process. So this leads me to step 2, communication. How do you communicate as a product person, high-level roadmap and strategy? So proactive communication is the top of that, and then communicating on a regular cadence. One thing that has worked for me personally, and I know this was one of the more reacted to from the second question, is how to foster open communication, is translating roadmap into marketing speak. I know that maybe sounds convoluted or sounds like there's a lot of overhead there, but I really think that this is a step that is really, really important. So for example, there's a lot of product jargon that as product managers and product engineering folk, we use with our different tools and in our agile process. All of that really does not translate to marketers. So they don't really understand why is a feature a certain way? What are the KPIs that are going to be driving this feature? How do I know it's successful? When do I know it's successful? When something changes, why did it change? What is the context of it changing? So actually what we do, or what my team does, is we translate our high-level roadmap and strategy into a version that is more appealing to marketers. So actually, one, you're incentivized to actually read it and understand it in detail. So we go through and list for every single feature on a high level, what are the different channels that we think are relevant for this feature or this feature area? How do we want to promote it? Obviously, we're not marketers, and so we don't really give them the terms in how we promote, but we give them a lot of insights, like what channels will work better and what messaging are we communicating across, or do we want to communicate across. This actually is very, very appreciated by the marketing team. At least in my experience, this is something new that we started doing this year when I joined. And it really gets them a lot involved in the process without being somewhat intimidated by the product jargon and product speak that we have on typical roadmaps and strategy presentations. And then on top of that, going back to the point of regular cadence, is we have a bi-weekly check-in point in place where our product team interacts with the marketing team and communicates to them what is changing. Obviously, in the product world, things change sometimes annoyingly very quickly and very frequently. And so we have to communicate proactively when this change is coming and give context as to why this change is coming. And then number three, involving them in the KPI checkings. So some companies, probably some people in the call, this is how your company setup is, have product marketing teams. And so a lot of times when you have a product marketing team, they're already a built-in liaison between the product engineering group and the brand marketers, but not always, right? So for instance, in our setup at Freeletics, we don't have standalone product marketers anymore. So not just the overall company KPIs on this point, marketing KPIs, but I mean specifically like product and feature specific KPIs. So regardless of the company setup, whether you have PMMs or not, or so product marketing managers or not, it's worthwhile having a dedicated product mouthpiece on the marketing team. So what do I mean by this? It's highly unlikely that your CMO or your marketing director is going to be this person. It's identifying a highly influential, typically an individual contributor on the marketing team who wants to be a little bit more involved in the product. So what I have, for instance, like in my setup at Freeletics, is we have a really dedicated person on the marketing team who is involved in not just the overall company KPIs, but in our monthly product KPIs. So she understands almost closer to an engineering level of specificity, like why we have certain KPIs, what's driving the features, what's changing. And she kind of has this contextual knowledge on what we do in the product team. And she translates these to the other marketers in very inorganic or organic settings, right? So like outside of like the set meetings that we have, like the bi-weekly updates that we have, like as I mentioned in the previous slide. But she does this in organic conversation. This actually fosters a lot of open communication and obviously leads to a lot of open collaboration. And then establishing a feedback loop. So obviously this goes without saying, but it's really not that trivial because I see a lot of teams don't really do this. Marketing can provide insights on customer reactions, how certain content is performing depending on the channels that they're promoted. And product teams obviously can take this feedback to make improvements on certain features or certain focus areas. One thing about feedback looping is a lot of times it's one directional, right? So product teams keep communicating to marketing like what they want or what's to come, or it could be in the other way where marketing is only communicating performance. So having the feedback loop where you make sure that it's bi-directional, so you have some sort of like system in place. So as I mentioned before, as we have this bi-weekly cadence of checking in with both teams, we pre-set aside times where both teams communicate, okay, we talked about this last time and we promoted this. How is it doing on the market, or how is it performing? This is from the marketers. And then from the product side, you gave us this input last time. This is the actions that we have taken contextually based on the feedback that you gave us. This obviously lends itself again to like open collaboration from the communication. And then the final thing I really want to say is that obviously this list that I went through is not exhaustive, but I think it's really, really practical. I think especially having the liaison, so having like the dedicated person on the marketing team that is basically able to do the product speak. And then the other thing that I want to over-index on is translating your strategy or your roadmap your roadmap into marketing speak. So marketers like really understand this and are incentivized to actually like dig a little bit deeper. Obviously, as product managers, we're not just managing features, right? We're really leaders. You could be leader of a feature, but you're kind of like the CEO of your own product. And that means that we should be expert collaborators. So I really hope that's helpful. I know there were some questions about fostering open communication, so I hope we can like have this be a little bit more interactive. That's all I prepared.
Awesome. Thank you, Confidence. You can stop sharing and then I can share my screen. I think that was a really like a great conversation starter. I think was like I've also like written down 2 of my questions, but I kind of have to step back if anyone else has any questions. But I have some questions that I've prepared for myself as well, which I think is pretty great that you've kind of triggered that type of thinking with us. So thanks for taking us through that. So everyone, what's going to happen now is we're going to go into a Q&A session. So I hope all of you have also kind of thought up, I actually want to hear a little bit more about this, or a little bit more about that. So we're going to go into Q&A. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give us 1 minute to just digest a little bit what Confidence has said and think of how we want to word our questions. And in that minute, I'll quickly just talk about product people again. And then we'll hand it over to Confidence to answer some questions. So just in general, when is it best to come to product people? When is the use cases that we give the most benefit? It's, like I said, interim product management, so product leaders, product coaching, product discovery, when you have like permanent positions that you need to cover because someone has left, or because you have parental leave covers, or because something, the company's growing really fast, new product areas come up and you need a product manager for that, like yesterday, then that's the type of use cases where we can be of benefit. And then some of the clients that we've worked with, you see here in the B2C client list, Freeletics is also there. So some of the clients that we're very happy to have been able to work with, and some of the B2B clients as well. And this is just some very quick stats about product people. So we've helped 200 cross-functional teams so far, and 70 plus clients from Series A startups to publicly listed companies. And we're 42 product leaders and product managers. And a stat that we're particularly proud of is that 62% of our team is women and 66% of our leadership is also women. So we're pretty happy about that and pretty proud about that. This is our team. So you can see we're from all over, and a pretty nice looking team. There at the bottom, you can see there's a little onigiri there, and that could potentially be you. So I'm going to keep the screen up so that you have time to take a picture of the QR codes and either go and apply if you want to apply or subscribe to our newsletter. But now I'm going to go over to the questions and answers. So there's one question, Confidence, that we've gotten from YouTube. And this person has asked, in your experience at Freeletics, how have you successfully built collaboration teams between product management and product marketing?
That's a really good question. I mean, this is at my time at Freeletics, but also like in my previous companies, my previous work experience. The point that I made about translating your roadmap, I think, cannot be overstated, and that's something that has very much practically worked for me in the past. I'll talk a little bit more about that because a lot of times in the way roadmaps are set up, right, it's in a lot of product speak or product engineering speak. When you present this on a very high level to like the company, to the marketers, people actually outside of the product engineering sphere maybe don't actually take it in detail or like really digest what's going on. When I say translating it into marketing speak is we kind of like pick all of those, not each specific feature, but each feature area, and I'm gonna go through those 4 Ps, right? So for an example, we're releasing a new feature. What is the product? It is that feature. What is the placement? So basically, what are the channels that we want to use to promote it? What is the price point? It's very different for like consumer products because a lot of times you don't price per feature, but you can contextualize that as to like, what is the value that is bringing to the organization? So what is the intended ROI of like releasing this feature? Product placement, pricing, and then how do we want to promote it? So like, what is the lingo that we want to use to like communicate this to the customer? What kind of customer are we communicating it to? Obviously, you have your user segmentation. So like, out of those segments, if there's any, if at all, what particular segment do you really want to focus on? We literally do this for like each area in a certain way. For us, we use a Miro board. There's very many like collaboration tools you can use for this. And then we communicate that to the marketing team. So not the actual roadmap that we use for engineers. And when we do that, it actually ignites a lot of conversation because like people are then seeing it contextually as marketers, and then really want to talk in detail. Okay, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe this is not the right channel. This is what happens a lot of times. This is not the right like line of promotion in terms of like lingo for like the customer that you want to target. So that kind of speaks. So I think that has worked for me in the past.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying like when you do this strategy road mapping type of things with the product marketers, it's important to kind of pull in those 4 Ps in every piece of that strategy and roadmap.
Very much
Okay.
so, yeah. And those 4 Ps, I mean, the 4 Ps is kind of like the industry standard guideline for marketers, but there's many different flavors of these. I think I've also heard like the 5 Cs. There's different ways, but I think what's important is like capturing all those buckets that marketers are thinking in, and then using that to like define your roadmap for them.
Mm-hmm. And is this something that you just ask the marketing team? Like, oh, okay. So
Generally speaking, yeah. I mean, in working with them, you should have some sort of like sense, like what is like what team has the most capacity, right? That obviously is like a good teller to like, are you focusing more on promotion or something else? But generally speaking, you just ask. Sometimes the marketers themselves are not thinking about it that explicitly. It's just kind of like innate or it's organic. So by you as a product person asking that question, you're forcing them to think in that direction, and they will give you an answer, generally speaking.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then we have a second question from YouTube as well. Could you share some practical tips on fostering open communication with cross-functional teams, especially between product management and marketing?
Right. So like fostering open communication, similar to like what I just said, if I took that to like a even deeper, I think it's being open about the things that you're aware of and the things that you're not aware of. So for example, as product people, sometimes you release a new feature, you have a target customer in mind, but you might have no idea of what channels are going to work best for your promotion, or like how the line of language that you want to use for this promotion. Being transparent with that lack of knowledge, so to speak, is actually helpful. Because then they feel like they have something to offer you, right? And because you're proactively asking that question. That's very helpful for like the fostering the open communication. The other thing is having a set time to like interact with them. So what I've seen really in the past is sometimes you have the high level strategy presentation or roadmap presentation, I don't know, at the start of the year or at the start of a quarter, and then kind of you leave it from there. Having like a more regular time to like interact with them. For us, it's bi-weekly, where there's preset checkpoints. So we do have to like see how things are performing and how things are doing. Having that set time sort of like, I don't want to use the word force, but forces this like open communication just by itself. Yeah.
Okay. And have you generally seen, because I feel like you are like closer to having this collaboration properly set up than maybe most of us, have you seen that there is sometimes like this clash between what people want between marketing and between product, and how do you overcome that?
Absolutely. And I think that's why having this like collaboration set up in place is really, really important, because then you see those clashes like preemptively and then you can address them. I don't want to speak for all marketing teams, but a lot of times marketing is driven by different KPIs, right? Let's take a social media team, for instance, in a situation like mine, where like social media and like promotion is really top of mind. They're driven by like number of impressions and basically views, depending on like the format of like how the asset is like given. Some of those, a lot of times, those don't translate to product at all. It could be that your social media platform, the kind of like engaged users you have on there look nothing like your actual like paying users, right? So you have different KPIs and you're kind of like working in different directions. I think what is really helpful about like translating this, and actually we discovered this working together in my situation at Freeletics, is actually understanding, okay, these are the product KPIs, these are the marketing KPIs, where is the midpoint, or basically where is the overlap in this Venn diagram, and it helps you like address that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And then kind of linked to that, I think as well, is there's a question from LinkedIn where this person has said collaboration often comes with challenges. What challenges have you encountered in your role, and how did you navigate or overcome them to maintain effective collaboration? So I think one of the challenges that we just spoke about, but whether there are any other challenges that you've also seen come out of this collaboration effort.
Yeah. It's a great point. Yeah. So the one we just talked about is a really big one. The other thing is ways of working. Marketers typically work very different from product managers. So for example, marketers typically plan very, very far ahead, especially if it's a promotion-driven marketing organization. That's very content heavy. Like you can actually pre-plan content for very, very long times to come. That's very different in the product world because there's a lot of dependencies, especially like in the software or in an agile environment, right? So you can plan ahead, which is the whole point of road mapping, but a lot of times we all know that that plan is typically changed or doesn't come to fruition in like some way, shape, or form. So those different ways of working where like I would say as product managers, you're probably more prone to quick pivots or quick changes versus marketers are very used to like long-term planning, and there's a lot of assets, right? There's a reason why they work that way. So that's one challenge that we have encountered. I wish I could give you a magic wand and like tell you like the exact fix. But the first step in addressing that challenge is like recognizing it. And we were able to recognize it because of like this open collaboration that we now have, or open communication. So we know, okay, well, maybe you can't plan that far ahead because there is X, Y, and Z dependencies. So maybe focus your planning on something else that maybe doesn't have that many dependencies. So that's another challenge that's actually really important.
Okay. And then thanks for that answer. And then a question that kind of popped up into my mind right now when I think about how I've worked with product marketing managers or product marketing previously was sometimes, not sometimes, it's been mostly that when I have those high commitment delivery dates and I have like the delivery stuff, not really the discovery stuff and there's problems that I'm trying to solve, that's actually only the time when I would usually tell them like, okay, this is coming up in this quarter, this is what it's solving, But I'm wondering, is that the way that it should be? Or should you also be telling them about the things that you're busy discovering on problems you're trying to solve that you don't have a solution for yet?
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. So actually in product speak like that, I think the best time to involve product marketing teams is typically from like the discovery phase, not like the delivery phase. The reason being is sometimes they might have a lot of insights that could influence your discovery. Like we, as product people, we think a lot about discovery in the typical processes that we run, right? Like your UX discovery, and then like you create like an MVP. I don't know what people's setup is. But product marketers, especially when they're promoted driven organizations, have a lot of insights, a lot of user insights that are like contextualized to like specific features that could influence how you discover new things. So I think the best time to involve a product marketer or a PMM is at the discovery phase. That's for sure. Yeah.
And then when you say to involve them in that phase, do you then mean these cadences that you've already mentioned, or do you mean those should be part of your discovery team?
No, I mean, this is very, very team dependent, company dependent, feature dependent, right? Generally speaking, in my experience, no, I'm not thinking to involve them as part of the team. It's basically, you can think of them as like an outside agency, like a consulting agency, so to speak, to give you like any insights that you might be overlooking. Again, I should caveat this. This is very feature dependent, right? So there's certain features where maybe you actually don't want to involve them in the discovery phase, and maybe you want to wait till the delivery phase. But generally speaking, you want to involve them at the discovery phase, not necessarily as part of the team, but as sort of like a consulting agency, so to speak.
Okay, and then I see there's a question from Jonas that's like adding to this conversation that we have now, starting from the discovery phase. Are you just promoting already published features, or are you also advertising upcoming features to further evaluate these features? Data gathering, since you mentioned a lot of decisions are made based on data.
It depends on the channel, right? So generally speaking, we actively communicate like already developed features, but there are situations where we're ideating on some things and we want to actually like the smoke tests, for anyone who is familiar with that term. Product marketers can actually be very helpful with this on specific channels. One that really works for us is like smoke testing on Instagram, but it could be any other channel, typically a channel where is maybe not as representative of your actual let me rephrase that is representative of your customer base, but are not actual paying customers. I think that's typically like a sweet spot or like a safe area to like smoke test. And this is something that, in my experience, product marketing teams have been very helpful with.
Okay, thank you. And then there's also a question from Elizabeth from LinkedIn. She's asking, can you give a practical guideline on how to come up with a job to be done for your marketing team if you are building a product from the start? I normally use the job to be done framework for my team to come up with a product roadmap.
I love this question. I actually don't. So this is now outside of Freeletics. This is in my past experience where I worked in B2B. I didn't use the typical product management jobs to be done template. I actually use the 4Ps template, which is the thing that I just went through, in creating sort of like the action items or the jobs to be done for the marketing team. I think it just makes more sense for marketers to understand in that way. I know now you might be asking, well, one of the 4Ps is the product in and of itself. You can think of that P as the feature, or it could be the product area. And then pricing, if you're on a feature specific level, so like pricing doesn't really play a factor, you could use replace pricing with ROI. So what is the expected impact, monetary impact, a lot of times that you're expecting this feature to have? I would use that 4P template to like create the jobs to be done, so to speak, for marketers. There's different alternatives to the 4Ps as well. There is the 5Cs. That's typically used for like services and less consumer products, but I think in theory it carries the same point. Yeah.
Thank you. And then I think probably this would be the last question, but this is something that I'm just thinking of right now. So we've talked a lot about what product marketing, for example, can expect from a product manager. But if we flip it around, like as product managers, what should we expect during all of this collaboration from product marketing?
Right. How certain things are performing. So how certain features are like smoke testing. So like results of a smoke test is something that you can, when you collaborate with product marketers on smoke tests, can give you a lot of insights into how certain things are performing, and then foresight into how certain similar things will perform. So those are the kind of things that you should be expecting from marketers. So my situation is kind of like unique, right? Because like we're very promotion heavy, but when I put out this kind of content promoting this type of feature, this is the kind of like impressions I'm going to get, or like the views that I'm going to get, which typically will translate to like top of funnel. It could be inversely. I could use that same channel, but I'm promoting a different kind of feature, and that's performing better. So drilling down to like what kind of content, in my experience or in my specific example, one kind of content works best for what kind of feature, and that's typically very, very, very different. I know that was very social heavy focus, but that same like theory can be translated to like different channels or like different marketing focuses. Yeah.
Thank you. And then maybe this is really the last question, because I keep thinking of more stuff while you're talking, but
I love it.
There are some companies that have just product managers and marketing. And then there are some companies that have product marketing managers. And then there are some companies that have product managers, product marketing managers, and marketing. And then who's responsible for what when you have all three? Because I've seen quite a lot of companies where there's all three.
Mm-hmm.
And where does product marketing managers then fit in? They're not marketing, but they are kind of product managers in a way. Like, how do these three work together?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Like, prior to Freeletics, I always worked in I worked in two companies that had all three functions, right? Like the product managers, the PMMs, as well as like brand marketing teams is like what we called them. In companies that have those kind of setups, you can think of the product marketing managers, so the PMMs, as more like inbuilt like liaisons, right? So they are the ones who are, as I was describing in my presentation, you're the ones who have that product speak, so to speak, and translating into like brand marketing teams. I don't think that is a direct replacement though for like things that I talked about, like translating your roadmap into like brand marketing understanding, because a lot of times those people are like just focused on like communicating like context of what's happening in product to brand marketers, but I don't think are always very successful, right? Because if you don't do that like translation and like removing all the product engineering jargon, sometimes it's not as effective. But in organizations where you don't have all three, so let's take for example, you have brand marketers and then product managers, you kind of have to like find that mouthpiece, that liaison organically by yourself. And as I was mentioning, I think finding a highly influential individual contributor is probably a good place to start.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Confidence. I think we've grilled you enough with questions now. It's been really cool, and thank you for giving us such like actionable, actual, practical answers. It doesn't feel very academic like the way that you talked about it. So that's really great, and I love talks that's like that. So thank you so much for your time, for your effort, for your great answers.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining. We are going to go off of live now quite soon. So thank you so much. And we hope to see you